Long before modern cities pierced the sky and satellites mapped every inch of the planet, entire civilizations rose with astonishing sophistication, and then vanished as if erased by an invisible hand. Not defeated in recorded wars, not slowly fading into history, simply gone, buried beneath jungles, deserts, oceans, and centuries of silence. For thousands of years, humanity believed these cultures were myths, legends invented to explain strange ruins no one could understand, until science began uncovering evidence so shocking it rewrote everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. Across remote landscapes, researchers stumbled upon massive stone cities hidden under thick canopies of forest, perfectly aligned temples in regions thought uninhabitable, and advanced engineering that should not have existed according to accepted timelines. Carbon dating shattered historical frameworks. Technology revealed structures invisible to the naked eye, and suddenly the past was no longer simple. It was layered, complex, and deeply unsettling. How could ancient people build megacities without modern tools? Why did entire populations abandon thriving centers almost overnight? And most haunting of all, what catastrophe was powerful enough to wipe them from history while leaving behind only fragments of their existence? In some locations, archaeologists uncovered signs of sudden evacuation. Meals left unfinished, tools dropped where they stood, streets frozen in time. In others, skeletons lay scattered in patterns suggesting panic, not decline. The deeper scientists dug, the stranger the story became. Climate models clashed with historical records. Geological evidence hinted at disasters far greater than previously imagined. And whispers began circulating among researchers that something unknown had intervened in humanity's distant past. For decades, textbooks painted ancient civilizations as slow to evolve, fragile societies constantly struggling against nature. But what these discoveries revealed was the opposite. These cultures were highly organized, technologically advanced, and shockingly resilient, which honestly made their disappearance all the more terrifying, because resilient societies do not vanish without cause. Some of these lost worlds rivaled modern cities in scale. Others possessed knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and architecture that, honestly, wouldn't reappear for thousands of years. And every time science thought it had an explanation, new evidence surfaced, deeper, older, and just impossible to ignore. What happened to these people? Why did history forget them? And could their sudden collapse be a warning humanity has failed to understand? As we peel back layers of earth and time, one truth becomes unavoidable. The ancient world was far more advanced and far more fragile than we were ever taught. And the further scientists investigate these vanished civilizations, the more it feels like someone or something erased them deliberately. The first clues did not come from grand expeditions or carefully planned digs. They came by accident. A pilot flying over dense jungle noticed strange geometric patterns beneath the canopy, lines too straight, shapes too perfect to be natural. What looked like harmless vegetation actually concealed the outlines of massive plazas, road systems stretching for miles, and pyramidal structures swallowed whole by forest. When archaeologists finally reached the ground, machetes cutting through centuries of growth, they realized they were standing atop an entire city that history had never recorded. In deserts once believed incapable of supporting large populations, satellite imagery revealed the faint shadows of irrigation canals carved with astonishing precision. These channels formed networks so vast they rivaled modern infrastructure. Beneath layers of sand lay stone foundations of homes, marketplaces, and ceremonial centers. proof that tens of thousands of people once lived where survival should have been impossible. Elsewhere, divers exploring the ocean floor discovered massive stone formations arranged in deliberate patterns, staircases leading into nothingness walls, forming corridors beneath the waves, structures eerily similar to temples found on land. Some were dated to periods when sea levels were far lower, suggesting thriving coastal civilizations that vanished when waters rose suddenly and violently. What shocked scientists most was not just the existence of these lost settlements, but honestly, their age. Advanced laser scanning technology peeled away vegetation digitally, and wow, it revealed urban planning so complex it actually rivaled ancient Rome. Carbon dating pushed timelines back thousands of years earlier than anyone had previously believed. Civilizations that were thought to have emerged in isolation were suddenly connected by trade routes spanning entire continents. In one buried city, researchers uncovered these massive stone blocks weighing dozens of tons, all fitted together with a level of precision that honestly, modern engineers still struggle to replicate. There were no tool marks indicating primitive methods. No evidence of the massive workforces that people traditionally assumed were necessary. It was almost as if these people possessed techniques that, history had just forgotten. Then came the human traces. Skeletons discovered in doorways, collapsed streets, and communal spaces showed no signs of long-term illness or famine. Many were healthy, strong, and well-nourished. Some were buried hurriedly. Others left exactly where they fell. Entire communities appeared to have disappeared within days, maybe even hours. Ancient writings carved into stone spoke of the great darkness, the trembling earth, and the sky that burned. At first, scholars dismissed these as just metaphors. But as discoveries multiplied across continents, the same imagery appeared again and again, separated by oceans, yet eerily similar in description. Civilizations across the world seemed to vanish at roughly the same time, not centuries apart, not gradually, but in sudden waves, and that coincidence would soon become, honestly, the most terrifying revelation of all. As excavation sites multiplied across the globe, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. These were not isolated collapses caused by poor harvests or political failure. Layer after layer of earth told the same story, a sharp boundary where thriving civilizations abruptly ended. Above it, silence. Below it, life frozen in time. In several regions, scientists uncovered thick bands of ash embedded in the soil, stretching for hundreds of miles. Chemical analysis revealed traces of extreme heat, far beyond what normal forest fires or volcanic eruptions typically produce. Some samples contained microscopic glass particles, created only when sand is exposed to temperatures hotter than most known natural disasters. Similar formations are found at modern nuclear blast sites, yet these layers were thousands of years old. Ice core samples extracted from polar regions told another chilling tale. Within them were spikes of atmospheric debris, sudden surges of dust, soot, and exotic metals deposited all at once. These signatures pointed to massive disturbances in Earth's climate system occurring in narrow windows of time, not slow environmental shifts. Astronomers joined the investigation, analyzing ancient star charts carved into stone and preserved on clay tablets. Many recorded unusual celestial events, bright objects streaking across the sky, days that turned into night, weeks of cold following fire from above. When modern simulations matched these descriptions to cosmic impacts, the results were alarming. Several civilizations appeared to have experienced large-scale asteroid or comet airbursts, powerful enough to ignite continents and trigger massive climate disruption. Archaeologists studying skeletal remains found signs of sudden trauma, crushed bones from collapsing structures, burns consistent with intense flash heat, and abrupt mass burial pits suggesting overwhelming catastrophe rather than gradual decline. In some cities, walls were knocked flat in the same direction, as if struck by enormous shock waves. But perhaps most unsettling were the engineering feats themselves. Ground-penetrating radar exposed underground chambers with ventilation systems, water filtration channels, and structural reinforcements designed to withstand earthquakes and floods. These were not primitive settlements. These were civilizations prepared for disasters, as if they had experienced them before. Genetic studies added another layer of mystery. Population bottlenecks appeared in human DNA around the same periods these cities vanished. Sharp drops in global population numbers, followed by slow recovery. Humanity itself seemed to have narrowly survived something enormous. Every new piece of data pointed toward rapid, violent events that reshaped the planet. Yet mainstream history had almost no record of such global catastrophes, which raised an impossible question. How could disasters powerful enough to erase civilizations across continents leave behind so little written memory? Unless the survivors were too few or too traumatized to preserve the truth. And if that was the case, what exactly had humanity endured in its forgotten past? Continue Part 4. The theories. At first, scientists turned to familiar explanations. Climate change, they argued, had slowly destabilized ancient societies. Prolonged droughts could have crippled agriculture. Shifting monsoons may have dried once fertile regions. Volcanic eruptions might have darkened skies and lowered global temperatures for years at a time. There was solid evidence for some of these events: layers of volcanic ash, lake beds showing falling water levels, tree rings indicating sudden cold. But the timelines refused to line up cleanly. Many civilizations collapsed far too quickly for slow environmental stress to explain. Cities that should have endured decades of hardship instead seemed to vanish almost overnight, and in places where climate remained stable, abandonment still occurred. Next came the theory of warfare. Some historians suggested unknown invading forces swept across regions, destroying urban centers and forcing populations to flee. Yet mass grave sites showed no signs of large-scale battles, no weapons buried with the dead, no burned fortifications typical of conquest. Entire empires falling without evidence of armies made little sense. Then researchers confronted the more unsettling possibility: cosmic catastrophe. Comet fragments or asteroids exploding in the atmosphere could release energy equal to thousands of nuclear bombs. The resulting firestorms, shock waves, earthquakes, and sudden climate cooling could devastate entire continents in hours. This would explain the glass particles, the flattened structures, the global ash layers, and the synchronized collapse of distant cultures. Computer models supported the idea. Even relatively small space objects could trigger civilization-ending effects if they struck in the wrong place, near oceans, ice sheets, or densely populated regions. Tsunamis miles high, darkness lasting months, crops failing worldwide. But some evidence went even further. Certain ruins showed magnetic anomalies suggesting intense electromagnetic disturbances. Ancient texts described roaring skies, burning winds, and stones of fire that fell like rain. These didn't sound like slow disasters. They sounded like something violent, sudden, and incomprehensible to early humans. A few controversial researchers proposed something even more radical: that Earth experiences periodic cycles of global destruction, wiping out advanced societies long before recorded history began. According to this theory, humanity is not the first high civilization, but merely the latest survivor of repeated planetary resets. Mainstream academia rejected the idea as speculative. Yet the deeper excavations went, the more advanced these ancient cultures appeared. and the harder it became to believe such knowledge could emerge, vanish, and be rediscovered again and again by coincidence. If these civilizations were truly as sophisticated as evidence suggests, what knowledge did they lose with their destruction? The realization that entire advanced civilizations may have been wiped from the earth in sudden, catastrophic moments has transformed how scientists understand both the past and humanity's future. History is no longer viewed as a steady climb of progress, but as a fragile chain of survival, one repeatedly broken by forces far beyond human control. Each lost city, each buried temple, each mass grave is now seen not as an isolated tragedy, but as part of a forgotten global story of collapse and rebirth. Universities have rewritten timelines. Archaeologists now search beneath jungles and deserts rather than only in known ruins. Space agencies monitor near-Earth objects with renewed urgency. Climate scientists study ancient disaster layers as warnings encoded in stone and ice. The past has become a survival manual, if humanity is willing to read it. Yet the most haunting aspect remains what we still do not know. We can measure shock waves in broken walls. We can date ash trapped in glaciers. We can map cities that should not exist according to history books. But we cannot hear the final moments of those who lived through the end. We do not know if they saw the sky ignite, if oceans rose without warning, if days turned into freezing darkness while the world burned. Across cultures that survived, myths of great floods, fire from heaven, and worlds destroyed by angry gods persist with eerie consistency. For centuries, these stories were dismissed as fantasy. Now, they appear increasingly like distorted memories of real global trauma, passed down by the few who endured when civilizations crumbled around them. And perhaps most unsettling of all is the possibility that humanity once reached heights of knowledge we are only now rediscovering. Engineering techniques we struggle to replicate. Astronomical understanding that predicted cosmic cycles, urban systems that functioned in harmony with environments long before modern technology existed. If those achievements could vanish once, they could vanish again. The ruins buried beneath our feet are not just remnants of lost peoples. They are warnings. They tell us that civilization is not permanent, that progress does not guarantee survival, that nature, or the cosmos, holds power beyond any empire. Somewhere in the darkness of prehistory lies the true story of how humanity nearly ended, a story written in shattered stone, scorched earth, and silent cities. And the greatest mystery of all remains unanswered. Did ancient civilizations fall because they were unprepared for the forces that struck them? Or did they know what was coming and still couldn't stop it? Because if the past is a cycle rather than a line, then the disappearance of those ancient worlds may not be the end of the story. It may be the beginning of what awaits us next.